Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We are going to be exploring Dia de los Muertos. It's actually going to be in a few days, so let's talk more about this beautiful holiday. Dia de los Muertos. This is a Mexican holiday or a Latin American holiday, and families welcome back the souls of their deceased relatives, friends, family, etc. for a reunion. If you've ever seen the movie Coco, that basically is kind of what's happening. Dia de los Muertos is celebrated each year, usually on November 1st and 2nd. October 31st is technically Halloween, and November 1st is All Saints' Day, and then November 2nd is All Souls' Day, or the Day of the Dead, and that's according to tradition. But did you know that the Day of the Dead has a lot of roots that go back 3,000, if not more, years from ancient Mesoamerica? The Aztecs and many indigenous cultures living in central Mexico had a cyclical view of the universe. They saw death as a very integral and present part of life. It was a big deal. The traveling in the underworld would take 4 years before you reached a place called Mictlan. And Mictlan was guarded by 2 deities. The first, Mictlan Tecutli, who's the god of Mictlan. But then we also have the goddess, Mictecacíhuatl, who I talk about in another video. So if you want to learn more about the journey of the underworld to get to Mictlan, check out that video. Now, how did this Aztec prominent holiday get merged into the Catholic calendar and is now celebrated on All Saints' Day? The traditional celebration for Dia de los Muertos, which was actually dedicated to Mictecacíhuatl, was traditionally held in the 9th month of the Aztec calendar, and this is around mid-July. Now, obviously, we are a couple months off. The pagans in Europe were celebrating a very similar holiday, Samhain, which was around fall. Samhain actually marked the Celtic New Year. It was the end of summer, and it's the end of the harvest season. It also symbolized the beginning of winter, and the Celts believed that the veil between the living and the dead was especially thin. This allowed the spirits of the dead to visit the living. Now, what does that sound like? If you've ever watched Coco, again, this is exactly what it is. So Dia de los Muertos was now easily translatable between the Catholics and the Aztecs. Dia de los Muertos is not a Mexican version of Halloween. Do not get me wrong. The holidays do share a lot of the same tradition, like costumes, parades, skeletons, treats, all kinds of fun stuff. On Dia de los Muertos, it's believed that the spirit world and the real world dissolve, and you can now interact with your loved ones, your deceased ones. The souls of the dead awaken, and they return to the living to feast, to dance, to drink, to have fun. The living would treat their deceased as honored guests, making them their favorite foods or other offerings at grave sites, or on ofrendas. Those can be decorated with candles, a lot are decorated with marigolds, and other foods, etc. Something that Dia de los Muertos is really known for is a calaca, which is the Spanish name for skeleton. Those are figures that are used as decoration during Dia de los Muertos, but they are made all year round. And this imagery is actually traced even further back to the Mayans, not just the Aztecs. Commonly, you will see calacas decorated with marigold flowers. One thing you'll notice too is that calacas are usually shown being really joyous. They're not really sad, they're not really angry. A lot of them will wear these beautiful hats decorated with flowers, these very ornate, beautiful dresses or suits, etc. This is because the traditional belief, like the one that is associated with Mictecacíhuatl, is that death actually is a joyous occasion. But this is a thought that has lasted forever, for hundreds of years. It's one thing that the Spanish could not destroy from Aztec and even further belief. You'll find one of the most famous calaveras or skulls is actually from La Calavera Catrina, or the Elegant Skull, and it features this beautiful female skeleton with makeup and dressed in these fancy clothes with a big hat, big feathers, etc. She is actually one of the most recognizable Dia de los Muertos icons of today. I mean, see, look at her. Currently, to celebrate Dia de los Muertos, people will wear skull masks. Sometimes they will paint their faces, and you've seen it before. These can be really elaborate. They could be very simple. Usually, it's in the shape of a skull. People will eat sugar candies, a lot of the time shaped as skulls. There are lots of food and drink, like spicy, hot, dark chocolate. There's a corn-based drink called atole. You'll find that there are paper mache skeletons. Some are plastic or clay skeletons, and they are everywhere. And this is just to remind people that death is just a part of life. Hanging out with skeletons kind of is a reminder that we'll all be skeletons, but not for a very long time. And a lot of the times you'll see these skeletons in Dia de los Muertos, doing fun things like making food, playing music, dancing, etc. Some other aspects that you might recognize from Dia de los Muertos is that instead of dressing in all black and mourning and, being sad, obviously, lots of costumes are vibrant, they're fun and colorful, and this is to remember the lives of the deceased. People will decorate their homes and the grave sites with fabulous candies, bright colored flowers, beautiful candles, relics, all kinds of very cool, fun things. In Michoacan, Mexico, Dia de los Muertos is really unique because there's an indigenous community there that believes that monarch butterflies are actually the souls of ancestors returning to the earth for their annual visit. It's really, really beautiful. The native people actually say that the monarch butterflies always return a few days before the celebrations begin. It's because the butterflies are migrating, and they believe that the butterflies are tired and thirsty from their travels, and children are taught to set out water to welcome the butterflies. There's actually a specific name called Paracata in Purépecha that means it's time for the corn harvest. It's actually a term for the arrival of the butterflies, and it's also believed to be the souls of the dead visiting for the night of Dia de los Muertos. Now, those are just the broad brushstroke traditions of Dia de los Muertos. There are activities and traditions that are not universal. People will celebrate Dia de los Muertos differing from town to town. We even see it in other places. We see it here in the United States. Places like Texas and Arizona tend to be very traditional when they are celebrating. We even have celebrations in places like Jamaica, the Philippines. There are other similar Dia de los Muertos celebrations in other places around the world, like in Indonesia or New Zealand, etc. And people will create ofrendas or altars that will celebrate the deceased with flowers and gifts. Dia de los Muertos isn't the only kind of day where the dead are celebrated or remembered. This happens in Brazil, Ecuador, many South American countries. We even have traditions in Europe. And like I said, Samhain, a Celtic celebration, is vastly similar to Dia de los Muertos. Perhaps if you've had a relative or a friend maybe pass, or if this is just something that you would like to do to celebrate and honor your ancestors or other loved ones, maybe this year you can participate in Dia de los Muertos, and maybe we can start seeing the idea of death or dying or the afterlife as maybe not being such a scary thing after all. So if you are celebrating this year, have a good time, enjoy, and I wish you all the best. That is just so amazing, and maybe one day I'll be able to celebrate too. Come join me on my socials at Kaiti Draws. You can find it in the description down below. Follow, subscribe if you do like videos about mythology, folk tales, goddesses, heroines, etc. And if there is somebody that you want to learn about, or a holiday or an event or anything, make sure to comment down below and we will go ahead, do the exploration. If these are videos you do enjoy, you can actually keep watching. There's plenty to learn, including our awesome Aztec goddess of the underworld. So enjoy.